Hello, friends. Welcome to the Nope Coach podcast. I'm trying seriously hard not to laugh because usually I'm a one take, no fake kind of person. But I tried to say the title of this episode 27, and I couldn't get it out. I had a stutter. And when you hear what this episode's called, you'll probably laugh as well. It's called Pro Level Avoidance. So the avoidance in this one was so strong, I couldn't even get the name out. And I'm joined today once again by the fabulous Shannon Ivey. And do you want to kick off this topic or would you like me to?
You kick it off. I'm avoiding it.
Pro level avoidance, procrastination, putting it off, whatever you want to call it. I think this is a fascinating topic because sometimes we give ourselves so much grief and so much guilt and so much shame. I think that word should be abolished. Should be abolished. Is it avoidance? Is it procrastination? Or is it part of your process? So in the previous episode, Lessons Learned the Hard Way, Shannon and I were talking about how we create things. And I used to think I had a problem with procrastination, but I've actually realized it's part of my process. I get excited about something. I tell everybody about it, get really invested. Then I tend to get bored or something else takes my attention. Squirrel. I ignore the thing. Shannon was like 6 months. I'm like, it depends. It could be a couple of weeks. It could be 6 months. It could be 3 years, as was the case of my book. But then when I come back to it, finish strong. And instead of beating myself up, I just realized that's how I do things. That's part of my creative process to front end, take a break, and then bring it home. Oh, I was going to start into Hamilton then. Take a break. I know you like it as well. Let's go upstate. Anywho, what's your experience with pro level avoidance, Shannon?
So I have some go-to ones. When my dad came to visit me in the house I live in Columbia, South Carolina, he said, "Oh, wow. So this purse thing, it's a real thing. So there are purses hanging on the wall. There are purses hanging on there's purses as art in my room.
I
There's like
love it.
bag. I love a bag. It's an identity thing. And I have this thing about moving purses around. I have a consignment shop. I have a site I sell my purses on. I'm stalking a purse. Always, it's like a process. One's coming in, one's going out.
I love
That's one of the
this.
things I do. Just one. I will spend hours stalking a purse. I'll need to touch it, feel it, smell it. I'll have to try it on. It has to work with my body, right? So it's like with what
It's
I
an
need, with what's
experience.
going on. Right. When I'm thinking about something, it is sometimes I need to get the hair off the top of my ears, or I need to move the furniture around in my office, or it's a very physical avoidance thing I do. But I also know I'm processing. So maybe pro level avoidance is when you're using it to your advantage. What do you think about that?
Yes, because it's pro.
Right.
It's like, I love how you spoke
Yeah.
about it being visceral, it being experienced. I stalk it, I touch it, I see, does it work with my body? Does it feel comfortable? Like, to me, that feels part of a process or productive. For me, actual avoidance, so not pro level, but actual avoidance, Candy Crush, couch, binge watching something, no regard for tomorrow. It's like one more episode. If I'm reading a book, one more chapter. And then suddenly it's really late and I wake up the next day and I'm shitty and I have a sugar hangover and I'm like, why? Actual avoidance. Where pro level avoidance, something like decluttering or your purse example, or something that's has, for me, as similar to you, has some sort of movement in it. It's part of the way that I process. So when the movement stops and the couch beckons, that's where I think I dip into true avoidance.
Mm. One of my processes of deep avoidance, not pro level, is I will have a couple of nibbly bits that are sort of bothering me, like a tag on a shirt, little things I need to do, email I need to send, a conflict that is still not complete. You know, there's something that's like irritating, something I need to do. And those things, I actually do have a strategy for this. You want to know what it is?
Yes, please.
8 minutes. I call it the 8-minute suck. So I'm like, all right, I have avoided it long enough. How many things can I get done in 8 minutes? It's going to suck, but after it, I treat myself.
I love that.
And actually, because I have a tendency, non-diagnosed ADHD, you can go ahead and feel what you feel about what if I am or not, but hyperfocus is my superpower. So one of the ways that if I'm pro level procrastinating, I know that I may be wasting time or taking a longer time than I thought I would need, but I can beast something out in about 8 to 12 minutes. That is fabulous. The rest of the time, I'm just pro level.
I love that because it's such a short period of time. You can't not set it, but it's also amazing how much you can get done with that hyper focus, because you can think about, I've got to respond to that email. Oh, it's not going to be pleasant. Or I've got to clean out the lint filter of my dryer and I don't want to dig around, whatever it is. But what takes the most time and energy is how much we let it ruminate in the back of our head when we sit down to do it. So I write a newsletter a couple of times a week and I never spend more than 10 minutes writing it. And it's so funny because a lot of people who read it, they're like, how long does this take you? I'm like, 10 minutes. What do you mean? I'm like, I sit, I write, sometimes 12 because I've got to schedule it as well, but I don't edit it. I don't care about my grammar and spelling. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not the best. I love the people when they reply lovingly and tell me I've spelled something wrong, but it's kind of like, it's to get it out. Whereas I used to, that I think, what's that? Is it Pareto's principle? The task will take the amount of time you allocate to it. So if you're like responding to that email or having that conversation, I'm going to allocate it 6 months. It takes that long.
I've done it.
My emails used to take me all day to write one tiny little email. And I'm like, this is not the best use of my time. I'd rather spend all day reading a good book than writing a newsletter. So I love your 8 minutes. It's like, let's see how much we can hammer out. And then reward.
Yeah, it's like gamifying.
Because then when you do the thing, it feels like fun and you're enjoying your activity rather than that mounting guilt because you're avoiding what you need to be doing.
I love that, like, ha feeling, like, I got it done. So then I feel relief and I can go back to stalking purses, which is my favorite thing to do.
I love that so much. You have to send me a photo later. I want to see this whole situation. I love it.
Now I have sold 3 this week, but I've bought 2 this week.
So you said earlier, in and out. So if you've sold 3 and bought 2, then you've got a space for 1 more to come in. I'm not a money coach, people. So
I've needed a lot of treats this week. So here we are.
I love that. So before we wrap up, any last wisdom about pro level avoidance, Shannon?
Oh, I just love the fact that both of us have tried to de-shame it, to take any shame away from like any words like should or it takes as long as it takes. You give it as much time as you give it. But if you want to shift it, if you want to allow it to take less time, you can play with that. So I love that idea.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
I love your idea about the timer. So if my takeaway or my thing would be, notice what it is that's in the back of my mind, ticking away, and then notice how long I think it's going to take, because, in our mind, it's going to take forever. Set the timer for 8 minutes and see how much we can hammer out in that time. Because I know sometimes when I've actually given something to focus, it's taken a lot less time. The big thing had been how much it'd been taking up mental space. But in terms of actually getting it done, and then do the thing, in your case, stalking purses, in my case, reading or whatever it is, to enjoy and do that from a place of enjoyment. And it feels different than when it's from a place of avoidance. So Shannon, where can people find you?
I am easy to find. You put in your Googles, put in Shannon, Shannon, Ivey, Ivey, And you will find me on Facebook, Instagram. My website is shannon-ivey.com. So that is how to find me.
Totally go look up Shannon. She's the midlife midwife. And you have your own podcast. Tell people about your podcast.
Oh, I do. I'm trying to be like you and get more out and less worry about it. That's the What She Said Project podcast.
Yes, check that out. It's fabulous. Thanks for joining me. Bye, everyone.